Good afternoon, everyone. We have a beautiful sunny day here in Amiskwaci, Waskagan, Treaty 6 territory, Edmonton, Alberta. Now, I know that some of you are joining from across the provinces. So I hope wherever you are, the sun is shining. And if not shining in the sky, at least metaphorically in your lives somewhere in this day. So welcome to Cando Links to Learning this afternoon. Looking forward to our guest speaker, Wendy. And of course, we're always honored when you join us and you tune in with us. So a couple of things, we will have opportunity for any questions and comments after today's presentation. So feel free to lend your voice to this topic. And if you have questions along the way, use that chat box and I will absolutely make note of any questions and we will make sure we get to your questions or your comments. There is an opportunity for you to win one of two $100 Visa gift cards. Woo, woo, woo. So the way you can enter your name is there will be an evaluation link that will be sent to you after today's workshop. And when you fill out that evaluation, your name will be entered to win a draw. So I think the ladies in the office will be pulling the names on Friday. So you will know if you have won when someone contacts you from the Cando office. All right, so let's just give thanks to Creator for the gift of another beautiful day. You know, when that sun rises in the east. And sometimes it's hard to get up in the morning because it rises so early in the morning. But when it rises, that's the Creator's gift. That's Creator's way of saying, welcome to a new day. Welcome to new possibilities, new opportunities. What can we learn today? And so this is an opportunity for us to learn, to grow, to, have that pot stirred. There's some things that maybe we have lost along the way or we've forgotten. And so this is just a great opportunity to learn together and to grow together. So thank you, Creator, for the gift of another day, a gift of the opportunity to learn in community, in this beautiful virtual community, and all the gifts Creator has given to us as we go along our path and our journey. All right, so today's guest speaker is Wendy. She's joining us from BC. She's the Executive Director of AFOA BC. She's been the executive director since 2019. Now check it out. She's a chartered professional accountant and a certified Aboriginal Finance Manager. She also holds a certificate in First Nation tax administration through the TULO Center of Indigenous Economics and Thompson River University. Prior to her role at AFOA BC, Wendy was the finance manager and tax administrator for Sumas First Nations for 7 years. She's been a member of AFOA since 2014 and was part of the team at Sumas First Nation who received a Best Practices Award from AFOA BC in 2017. So her experience in finance and administration is long and varied as she's worked in the post-secondary education and not-for-profit sectors. So she's a firm believer in lifelong learning. Me too, girl, me too. And is happy to bring her experience, knowledge, and curiosity to her current role and is honored to work with all the First Nations in BC. So today's webinar is Ideas to Dollars. So putting your strategic plan into action. And I think that is so important. We have a lot of vision, we have a lot of ideas, a lot of dreams, but it's like the practical part, putting it into place, putting it into action is so important. So the question is, do you often wonder where to start when trying to bring your plans to reality? And how do you create a budget out of strategies? So you're joining today's webinar. She's bringing her expertise and experience to give you some helpful tools to bring strategic plans to life through budgets and work plans. And I love that. That's like my jam. So I'm really excited that you are here to join us, Wendy. And I'm going to pass this virtual mic to you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I never, it's so not often you find someone who's so excited about finance and budgets as you are. That's awesome. Anyways, it's nice to see you all, and I hope you are all doing well. I first want to acknowledge that I'm coming to you from the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, and particularly the Coquitlam people. And I'm coming to you from just outside of Vancouver in Port Moody, where it's a beautiful day, and we're blessed to be on these lands. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because we have lots to talk about today. And just give me the thumbs up if you can see my screen. Yep. Okay, great. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how strategic plans get put into place and how we put dollars to them, because how do we make them become a reality? And so I hope that I can give you a few nuggets to take away with you and help you in your daily lives working within First Nations. So first of all, let me talk about AFOA BC first. If you're not familiar, AFOA stands for Aboriginal Financial Officers Association, and we are the BC chapter. That's I'm the executive director of the BC chapter. I have with me today Krista Elliott, who is our capacity development manager, and she's helping out with me today. So we are part of the network that is national, which is AFOA Canada, which is based out of Ottawa, and we're affiliated with them. But just so we start off on the right foot, so you know what our story is that we were founded actually in 1996. So we've been around for a long time as a nonprofit organization to assist in the professional development and networking of Indigenous finance managers. And so now not only do we work with finance managers, but we work with band administrators, managers, elected officials, ECDEV corps, and community members around financial literacy and such. So AFOA BC has over 300 members. Nationally, we have over 1,500, I believe, nationally. And yeah, we have many membership services and offerings. So if you are interested in becoming a member, just go to either our website or go to the national website, afoa.ca, and take a look. But we do a lot of training and certification for not only in finance, but in public administration, as well as we now have a certification in human resources management and Indigenous leadership. So we have quite a good array of products that way. So enough about that. Let's talk about strategic plans, business plans, and financial plans, and how do they work together. So as you know, planning usually starts with a comprehensive community plan. And that is your membership's opportunity to give their input into what they, what is the, consensus or agreement on what to do with your reserve lands and traditional territories as well. And so from your comprehensive community plan, you build a strategic plan. That strategic plan then gets parsed out to your different departments, and you develop from there a departmental business plan. And from that departmental business plan comes your financial plans, which are your budgets and that sort of thing, your evaluation plans, which are your performance measures, which is a really important piece that I'm going to talk about a little bit about today, because it's really important that we remember how to evaluate whether we're successful or not. And also our activity and work plans. So these are all integrated. They start from the big concepts and they draw down in how to get these things done. So you start with a strategic plan. A strategic plan is usually something that is drafted in in concert with your chiefing council, and they look into the future, 20 years, 7 generations. They reflect upon the values and the visions of the community. They integrate programs and resources into that plan, what they want to see those programs and resources look like in years to come. And it's very general, right? So it's just a very large high-end perspective. And so if you haven't had a chance to look at your strategic plan for your community, you should. That's a really great place to start to know where your priorities should be. And then from that strategic plan, it gets further developed into business plans. And those are usually done by department, whether you're in a lands department or you're in economic development or health or education. There will be parts of that strategic plan that are going to directly reference you. And so it's the business plan become kind of the roadmap or the ways and means for the strategic plan implementation, right? And so it's gonna really be the guts of how you're going to, it's going to set specific goals, you know, and objectives. It's usually out 5 years in duration on how you're going to accomplish these things. And so that you can kind of start developing actions to go with those concepts, right? So it's something, even though you're going to look at your business plan as a 5-year duration, you're going to review these every year, because as we know, the one thing that always stays the same is that there's always change, and that, you know, things happen. This year has been a really good indication of how things can turn on their heads really quickly. And so you need to review these plans annually to see if they're still relevant and whether you're still on track, and what has changed and what might you have to change as well. So what comes first? Well, a business plan, which is activities that will take place over the next 5 years to implement your strategic plans. From there, you know, that's going to give you some pretty grounded concepts. And from there, you can now start to plan a financial plan or a 5-year budget. And then from there, you can actually look at work plans. What activities are you going to do and when are you going to do it? And then there's that last piece, performance measures and SMART goals. How do you know that these programs and services that you are delivering as part of your strategic plan are being successful? And that is one of the things that we tend to not pay enough attention to, and we really need to, right? So I'm going to give you some ideas around what SMART goals are and how you go about doing them, because it can be really daunting and overwhelming. So let's talk a little bit about budgets. So generally speaking, there's 2 different types of budgets that you're going to be looking at doing. One is going to be a capital budget, and one will be an operational budget. I always suggest that you start with a capital budget. And what is a capital budget? Well, a capital budget, a capital as an accountant's term, is any piece of equipment or anything that will last, a tangible attached asset that will last you for longer than a year, has a useful life that's longer than 1 year in length. So those will be things like cars, they will be, you know, or trucks, roads, buildings, anything large like that will have what they call a useful life, and they will extend upon longer than 1 year. So because they have a useful life that spans out, even though they're usually much more costly than in an operational budget, you can actually expense the cost of those over the useful life of them. That's what accountants like to do. So when you're planning your strategies and whatever, when we talk about capital plans, those are really your big ticket items. And so I usually suggest you start with a wish list. Excuse me. Within your capital plan, you're going to say, okay, well, we want, maybe one of the things that you want to build is a new administration building, or maybe you want to do a new school, or perhaps you want to build a gas station for economic development, or a multiplex for the community. All of those things we have to plan ahead, because there's a lot of different competing capital items, right? And so if you get them all down on a list, then at least you have some place to start. And then you can, and then as a group, usually as a chief and council, they can decide the priorities of each of those things. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a quick drink of water. The reason that we do it like this is because capital drives operating expenses. So, for example, you buy a new truck for the lands department. If it's a replacement for an old truck, generally speaking, your repairs and maintenance is going to go down, because you won't have as much repairs because you'll have a new truck. But if you're not replacing something and it's a new truck, then your operating expenses may go up because you've never had that piece of equipment before. So you're going to need to have oil changes, and all of those things that go into that truck are going to need to be expensed as part of your operating expense. So you have to think about what operational requirements are going to be needed for those capital items. Maybe you have a new member training facility, so you have to consider the operational cost for that building. If it's an old building that's gone, are the costs going to go down because it's new and it might have more better it doesn't need as much heat or that sort of thing. But you have to consider all of those things, right? So when making your capital budget, you also should be looking 5 to 10 years into the future. What are you going to be wanting over those 5 to 10 years? And then this is where you compare it to your strategic plan. So if your strategic plan says that you want to have a new member training facility, where in that 5 to 10 year plan are you going to do it? Because that's going to kind of drive when you're going to need the dollars for that, right? And it also is a great way, because then you can go back to the community and you can say, in 2 years from now, we are going to build that facility. It builds that optimism because they know that you're thinking about it, and that, that if the community has said that they wanted something like this, then they'll see that it's being thought about and it's being planned for. And so it really builds optimism as well. So once you've established your timelines on your capital budget, then you need to look to your operating budget, and how does those capital items, how do they impact, right, your operating budget? Now, under a 10-year grant, if you are under a 10-year grant, you need to do a 5-year operating budget. And those can be a little bit daunting, but it's the first year is the hardest. And then it becomes easier because you can use the information that you have, right? That, the actual numbers from maybe the previous year, right? To use for your next year. And you can add an escalator to it to deal with such things as inflation. And this is where you really need to get your CFO or your finance manager involved, or ask them, right? They need to provide you with those parameters. Don't go out thinking you have to reinvent the wheel yourself. They should be able to give you that information, and please use them, right? They should be able to tell you what the assumed inflation rate is going to be. They should be able to give you detailed wage information as far as escalations in that. If there are admin fees, maybe there are insurance requirements. So they should have access to all of that and be able to help you, work with those numbers. So don't feel like you're standing there all out on your own. They should have all that information. So when you're building your budgets, you need to keep notes on how you came up with the numbers. That's really helpful, because if you don't remember, then, down the road, then it's going to be, it gets really difficult. And if somebody asks you, well, how'd you come up with that number? You can explain to them. And it also helps that if parameters change, then it makes it easier for you to go back and recalculate. So just a really good tip to try and remember. And if you use Excel, what I always do is I never just add it up and then put the total number in. I use that formula right in my cell so that you can it adds together and you can see what numbers make up that big number. You need to consider things like fixed and variable costs. So fixed costs meaning costs that don't change over time. If you have, fixed costs could be things like if you have a photocopier lease, well, that photocopier lease is good for probably 5 years and that lease rate doesn't change. Variable costs that are costs that change when service, if you give more of a service. So for example, if you are in education and you have to add classrooms, then that would be a variable cost because it changes with the number of people that you need to support. You should also look for economies of scale with other departments. So economies of scale is things like, and what we used to do is that, I would take the full office supplies budget for the whole administration office and then divide it up amongst all of the departments and give them that number rather, because it's a lot cheaper to buy for everybody and then divide up rather than each department having their own little stash of office supplies, because it gets cheaper the more that you buy, right? And so as a manager, it's really important as a manager that you know what you're spending, and you're the best one to know what you're purchasing and what you need to provide that product or service. And so that's why managers are, really important and integral to develop their own budgets. Just because you're in finance, that doesn't give you any idea that what education needs to run their department or what economic development needs are. You, as the manager of that department, you'd be the one who best knows that, and that's why you should be the one to present that, right? And always remember, use your finance department for help and support. They're there to support you. That's what their job is. And they're the ones who can bring you that information. So, and once you've done those budgets, I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to change because things happen and that you don't anticipate, as we all know. And and that's part of what needs to be done all the time, quarterly, is reevaluate and determine whether what you originally put forward is still accurate, right? Like if the circumstances have changed, then you may need to go and look at, ask your band administrator to reallocate funds. Or, if you don't get the funds, are you going to have to cut services? Or is it okay to have a deficit? Maybe it is okay to have a deficit, which, you actually spend more money than you actually have in your portfolio. Or they bring new funds into it. There's always massaging to be done. So, you always need to look at what you're doing, because it will most definitely change. So here's where I want to talk a little bit. Now, at that point, is there any questions? Does anybody have any questions that at this point? I can't see the chat, but anybody have any questions at this time about budgets? Nope. Okay, that's good. I will go on to what I find to be one of the one areas where we don't spend enough time looking at, and which I think is really important, and that is performance measures and SMART goals. how do you know that your program or service is successful? And what does success look like? And so that becomes a really big question that you need to think about when you are starting, thinking about your goals and thinking about your budgets and thinking about your plan. Because your strategic plan has certain ideas of what what it expects. And so we need to kind of look at what those performance measures are and celebrate the successes when they happen. So when we look at performance measures, this is a good little, it's kind of between quantity and quality. So, and effort and effect, right? So this is this little box that says, your quantity and your effort make up how much you just, how much service did you deliver? Like it'll be numbers, right? But quality and effort is how well did you deliver it, right? Which is a little bit more qualitative instead of quantitative. And it's harder to measure how well because it's subjective, it's not objective, right? And then the other side of it is that what kind of effect did it have? So the quantity, you delivered more, but did you create a larger amount of change, or did the service that you delivered, did it affect more people, for example? Is anybody better off, right? And the same with the effect on the quality. What quality of change did it produce? Did it produce a little bit? Did it produce a large, large change? So these are much harder to actually measure in qualitative measures than in quantitative. So let's just take a look at some examples, because I know this concept kind of sometimes is hard to explain and to kind of get your head around. So again, performance measures need to be in work plans, because it's a great way for you to measure performance of your employees as well, right? So when you're looking at effort, how much did you do and how well did you do it? That's what we were just talking about with a qualitative and quantitative effort, right? And the effectiveness of that program. So did you have the effect that you were striving for? Did you advance the strategic objectives? That will tell you whether you were effective. And the economy, which is your budget, did you do it on budget? And what does it cost in comparison maybe to others, right? To other organizations. So if you can compare to other organizations. So those are kind of some ways that you can look at it. So let's look at an example of a new business on reserve, right? How are you going to measure whether this new business is successful? Well, if part of your strategic plan is to ensure that the community members have employment, then if that's one of your strategic plans, then maybe you will, for the effort, you will want to measure how many community members were hired at this new business on your reserve, right? And then you may want to look at, well, okay, so we might have hired a bunch of people, but how many were full-time and how many were part-time or seasonal? Is this a seasonal thing? Or, on reserve employees versus off reserve employees? Those are kind of some of the measures that you could look at to determine. And then you determine what would you consider as successful. If we hired, 4 full-time employees, or we had 15 part-time employees, that may be the nature of the business, but to actually plan that is what's going to be successful for you is that's kind of some of the ways that you can look at measuring this, right? And then what is the effect? So if you hire new people and you hire, community members, well, what kind of effect do you hope to have? I mean, a measure to try into the strategic plan. Maybe part of that strategic plan is you want more businesses on reserve so you can hire more members, so you can reduce rent arrears. With people working, they're going to be able to afford their rent, on their rentals. So that might be an effect that you want to create by putting this new business on reserve. So it's thinking outside the box at those other things that can benefit, right? That can benefit the community as a whole by doing this new venture. And the quality, you can do a survey. Maybe they have a better quality of life because they're employed, right? So that's just kind of an example of how you might measure some of those that might seem totally unrelated to your business venture, but actually are integrated in your strategic plan. So we talk performance measures in a way of what we call SMART goals, and SMART stands for specific, measured, achievable, relevant, and time sensitive. So SMART goals, when you are developing these kinds of goals, you need to be specific. What are you trying to accomplish and who is affected, right? They need to be measurable. How are you going to measure the result, right? They need to be achievable. You can't, if you set your goals way too lofty in the first year of a new business, you may be just starting out. You can't expect to, go from 0 to 100 employees in 1 year. That's just not achievable, right? So you might want to just think about, given a time constraint, right? Is this possible? Is your goal that you're setting up, is it really possible? It needs to be relevant, right? Will this goal accomplish what you need? So when we talked about that last one, right? Like reduce rent arrears, for example, as a goal, is that, is that the goal that you want? And if it is that going to achieve it, right? Like, does it mesh with your strategic plan? Is that one of the strategic goals that you want to achieve? So, and time sensitive. Do usually we look at a year, 2 years, 5 years, and if you have this goal, can it be accomplished within the time constraint? So those are all of the kind of pieces that you need to look at to look at those SMART goals to determine whether you are going to be successful and if this is going to achieve the results you want it to achieve. So let's look at this example again, right? This new on reserve business, SMART goals, right? So let's say that you're going to start this new business, and these are, those performance measures are some of the things that you wanted to achieve. So now you need to put some measurements to it. So for your effort, the quantity, 10 full-time people and 20 part-time jobs added. So if you're saying that that's how many people you're going to hire, how many, maybe 85% of the people hired are members who live on reserve. And that would be considered your SMART goal. That would be 85% of those people that you're going to hire. You want that to be, that will mean that you've been successful in that goal. And how do you determine if it's, if it's working, and the quality of that employment? You might do a survey of the members or of the employees, and ask them if they're finding that it's a fair wage, good work conditions, are they happy there? If there's a 90% satisfaction rate, maybe that's going to be your determination that you're doing something right and that you're achieving what you wanted to achieve. And then the effect, right? The effect that you wanted to measure. So you're saying, well, we want people on reserve and our people hired, and because we want them to have a better life and we want them to pay their rent as well, right? So so because that's one of your goals and that's what you think the result is going to be, then you need to measure that. And how do you do it? Well, you can look, is rent arrears gone down? Were rents arrears reduced? And if they reduced by 50% due to the employment of these people, then I guess you were successful, right? That makes it successful. It's not going to be all or nothing, but if you can see a bit of a drop and that's what you expected, then it's successful. And you need to look at the quality, right? And again, it goes to there's quantity, but there's also quality, right? You also want to make sure that their wellness and their quality of life is because they're employed and they're working, that they're better off and that they feel better and they're healthier. And so you might do a survey to determine whether they're saying that they feel better and they feel more productive, right? So these things are, and maybe that ties back to a strategic goal to make the community healthier and well. So this is just an example of how you might be able to create some specific goals around whether this on reserve business might be working, right? And again, to remember the SMART goal, which is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time sensitive. So let's take over a strategic goal of, say you want the community wants a gas station on reserve. Okay, so let's take that as a goal that there's no place, you don't even have a piece of land set out, but that's something that the community has said they wanted. And as part of the plan is they want to be able to get their gas and get their snacks and get their cigarettes, right, close by, that they can either walk to or have on reserve. So what does that look like, right? What will it include? Will it be just a gas bar? Will it be a convenience store? Will it be a coffee bar? We have to think about all those things. How many employees are you going to employ? How much does it need? How much money do you need for having, from an operational perspective for it to break even? So these are the starting thoughts that you have to think about if that's one of your strategic goals, right? When do you want it operational by? Okay, well, if you want it as soon as possible, how long will it take to build? How quickly could you get it up and running, right? So and with that, you see that that's not something that it's only one department can deal with, right? I mean, it takes everybody, right? Lands is going to have to look at it because they're going to have to make sure that there's a land allocated, right? Is it going to be on CP land or band owned land? Is it, that sort of thing. Employees, do you have enough employees on reserve that would be able to staff this gas bar or this gas station, right? How quickly can you get it built? Who needs to be involved with it, right? Where will you put it, right? What about, is it going to be owned by the band, or are you going to go into a partnership, right? ECDEV has to get involved. Infrastructure availability. Is there water? Is there sewer? Is there, all of that kind of stuff needs to be thought of, right? Are you going to build this by getting financed or own source revenues? How are you going to do this? So these are all of the questions when you're looking at a strategic plan, and the different departments are going to take their different pieces out of that to be able to support that project, right? So you've decided, so let's say we've determined a 5-year time horizon, right? So yeah, it's going to take us 5 years to get this, right? To get this operational. So in year 1, you do the pre-planning, your cost to ECDEV, your cost to lands, your infrastructure costs, are there, gas bars, right? Contaminants, think about that kind of piece as well, right? Is that you have to consider all of those all of those pieces and to ensure that you keep things safe and it's not near a, the well water or something of that nature, right? So, and then maybe, okay, so all of that, you're going to give yourself the first year to kind of do all that pre-planning. And then in year 2, you're going to start to look at construction. You've determined the land and that sort of thing. Now you're going to start doing construction. What other considerations do you need? Okay, so you've got construction costs, and will you need staff, or are you going to build it? Are you going to hire a contractor to build it? Are you going to do it internally and have your public works or somebody within internally manage the project, right? Or are you just going to farm it out to a project manager who will do that? Do you want your members to be on the construction crew, right? Do you want to pay them directly out of, through the band for that, right? If that's part of it. So how long will construction take, right? So maybe construction might take a couple of years, right? Or it might, to get all of those pieces into place. What other considerations might you have when doing that? And then you start, okay, so our construction is just about done. Now we have to consider staffing. We've got to consider who's going to manage the store, how many staff do you need? What other things are you going to incorporate into that store, right? Is it, you've probably made a decision. Are you going to have a little restaurant in there, or are you going to have just a coffee bar? Are you going to make it a convenience store, or you want more? Do you want to have maybe what you have is that you have a coffee bar and you hire some members to make muffins and that sort of thing for that, right? So you need to prepare all of those types of things. And now you need to think about operational costs to maintain the building and what kind of hydro and gas and all of those things that you need on a day-to-day, what's going to inventory and breaking even, and what's it going to cost, right, to break even. So now you're starting to think about those operational costs and what are going to be those costs that are going to be ongoing and what are going to be one-time costs that you just, like point of sale system, right? You'll have to probably buy a point of sale system, which will be part of your capital because that point of sale system will be useful for a number of years, right? So there's an example of something that would be a capital requirement within that gas station. So, and then when you start operations, you've got to integrate all of those things into your operational budget so that it's ongoing. So that just gives you kind of an idea of what that looks like from just one project, right? So to review, it's 2:45. So I do want to give some time if anybody has any questions, but yeah, I love this. Here's what I know about the future. It happens as a result of what we do today, right? And so planning is really, really, really important because it gets you prepared and it makes you think about what you need to do. So when you look to the future, here are some of the tidbits that if you have any tidbits that I can give you in this 1-hour session, about looking into the future. Start with clear strategic goals. That's really important. If you're not clear on what those strategies or strategic goals are, you need to find that out. And, I'm always a proponent of start with wish lists, right? Like the big ones, right? All of those big lofty ideas, because that's where, that's where you start from, then you start to break them down, but don't let that don't let your head get in the way of your goals, right? Kind of start and then fit the pieces of the puzzle together, and you can work together to try and that's how you create that community, right? Partner with other departments to build economies of scale. The more you can get together and work together, the better off that you can all be. And then and talk to your other departments, and finding innovative ways to achieve your goals is really, so enlightening. There are always solutions to every problem, and they're very, you just need to be creative. And then set performance measures. If there's something that I can get you to take away from this, it's really, and it's what we don't do enough, is set goals, set SMART goals, set performance measures, and set those goals, because there's nothing better. Michelle gives me the heart. Yes, there's nothing better than achieving that goal and celebrate. And then when you achieve it, celebrate it, right? Celebrate it with everybody, because it really is something to celebrate your successes, right? So with that, I'm going to tell you, so that was just a very, very small little piece around SMART goals and budgets and all of those. Now, AFOA BC is doing this year, is getting back in person, yay, and doing a series of budgeting workshops for non financial managers. So whether you are a manager in lands or economic development or education, it doesn't matter. You guys all have this kind of similar issues and such. So we're doing a number of budgeting workshops today in person, budgeting regional. So we're going around BC to do that. So if you are in BC, I would strongly suggest you go to our website, and it's afoabc.org. And I think Krista will put it up in the chat. And October, we're doing 3 in October. We haven't set up the ones for next year yet, but check back at our website and we'll be able to let you know where those ones will be. And AFOA Canada also does a number of really good workshops. So if you are in, or check out with your AFOA chapter in your province, because they also have a lot of workshops that they do. Or if you want to bring one of these into your province, I can work with the AFOA chapter there, or you can contact me and we'll make sure that we get you involved into one of these workshops. And so with that, this is my information. So if you want to get in touch with me, but I am here for anybody who may have some questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Wendy. We do have a question here in the chat box. It's from Ramona. What happens when the strategic plan has low buy-in or low participation? In short, when human resources drive our projects, how do we scrape by with effective strategic planning without proper representation? I was wondering if you had any tips for creating a community of doers. Is the answer incentives? And should we be building those into our budgets? Really good question, Ramona.
So human resources is driving your projects. Are you saying that, is it a lack of human resources? I guess that would be, strategic plans that have low buy-in by employees or low buy-in by members. I don't know. Do you want to turn on your audio, Ramona? Maybe you can give me some insight here. I'm just trying to.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah. So specifically, I suppose I'm talking about the more rural region locked communities where we have a high consent culture, but low capacity.
Yeah.
Where we suppose the direction is to get things done, and then find somebody to do it. I was wondering if you'd ever coached or worked with organizations that are facing the same barriers.
Everybody is facing that barrier. It seems it's a universal one. I'm telling you, Ramona. It's, especially for those who are more remote and don't have the capacity in-house to be able to do that. My suggestion is to find other nations. Like if you can find other nations who may have been been successful in some of those things. There are a lot of good organizations out there who will work with you on trying to help you create, and we'll do that for nothing. Finance, you know, the First Nation Finance Management Board is a great resource for that. They will help you, you know, kind of if you're looking for a specific project, or you're trying to get that strategic plan off the ground. They're a great one because they don't, you know, they're funded. So their job is to try and help you find like-minded, you know, organizations, or they may know somebody who has done what you're looking to do and might be able to recommend. You know, really, I think the best way to is to really connect with other First Nations and try and find out what they're doing. It's I know it's not easy, and everybody has, you know, there's more work to go around than there is that you have the ability to do all in a day's work, right? But you know, so then maybe trying to find ways around that by looking to other communities or third parties to try and help you with those issues.
Thank you very much. That was really insightful.
Thanks, Ramona. Michael, I see your hand is up.
Hi, yes. Good afternoon, Wendy.
Good afternoon. Hi.
So it's good to see you again.
Yes, you too.
I guess this kind of definitely kind of builds off of Ramona's point just there, where instead of like in my situation, it's less where we're kind of a large department, kind of like the whole unit or department, but more of like on the initiative kind of ground where you're trying to just, you know, kind of fill in some gaps of different kind of programs and funding and being able to kind of work in that regard. So I'm just wondering, because I know you talked a lot about the operational budget and the capital budget and stuff like that. So when we're working as a team to try and like create that strategic vision and initiative and then bring it to management to get those kind of resources, I would just love to know when you have kind of that lack of buy-in or ability to kind of, you know, you're very small and you're trying to kind of envision these kind of wish lists and resources that you have. Do you have any kind of thoughts or on kind of being able to get a really good, strong proposal that you can, you know, you can kind of get that buy-in and kind of for the management and stuff like that, I guess. Hopefully that.
Yeah, so I would ask, I mean, you know, depending on, I mean, it's hard to, I mean, I guess what I would say is that if the strategic plan is a document that has been created, it should have, you know, it's created by your chief and council, right? So if you are building on something that your chief and council has developed in the strategic plan, and you're trying to get a project off the ground, I mean, as long as you tie it back to that, right? That it's tied back and to that is one way I would suggest. The other is, I think that it's, you know, you really have to make sure that you're not working in a silo, that you are working in concert with the rest of your group, right? Like of the others, right? So that you have, you know, that there's, that you're not just trying to create something that is a benefit just for that department, but, you know, bring other people around. And you can bring other people around by just, you know, I mean, having as you know, having all your ducks in a row, you know, doing the research, checking out others, checking out best practices in other communities. I'm telling you, the best way that you can get some great ideas is if you talk to people who are in a similar situation or have done what you're trying to do. And building that network is, I truly believe, is one of the biggest benefits of getting buy-in, because if you can go back to your chief and council and say, well, these guys, I've been talking to so-and-so down the road here, and they've been really successful with that. And this is what they've done. And, it falls right in line with what we're talking about, what we're doing. If we work with them and they've already got the blueprint, why can't, this should be, now you're not reinventing the wheel. Don't reinvent the wheel, right?
Okay.
Get work with others. I think that is really truly the best way to try and because that takes the guesswork out of things.
Okay. Because even if I could even just follow up a little bit on, because exactly that, where we're trying to create some kind of, and even it is a little finance related because that's kind of my field, on creating budgets and business plans and stuff, and trying to fill in some of those kind of gaps of capacity built off of the strategic procedures and stuff that the CCP would have. And so really what the kind of the issue is getting that buy-in from the other departments kind of, or the other kind of resources, right? Where we are working in a silo, but we want, people to be able to, our managers to be able to go out and get the organizations to help other people discuss with us and work with us. And obviously that puts a burden on them. So really, I guess what you're saying, and I just want to confirm, is that you may be going and talking to other nations and getting best practice for them and confirming like this is work for them. Kind of putting resources to look into interact developing tools, yep, or into getting a development kind of for that, finding it out that way and kind of pleading our case.
Yes. And also, always try and put your head into, if you're trying to convince another department to buy into something, maybe try and put your head in their shoes, right? Like or put your feet in their shoes, right? And kind of think about, okay, what would be a benefit for them, right? And try and think outside that little bit of a box, right? And go, well, okay, so what is, if they're going to put the effort into this project, what's in it for them? And that's the whole idea, right? Like this is all about trying to steer a ship all in the same direction, so everybody is getting the benefit all together, right? And it's not like, well, if he wins, I lose, right? Like that. So you really have to look at trying to look at win-win situations. And that's why, when you build a wish list, some of those things may never happen because that wish list might, but you have to start somewhere, right? But, maybe with that if you start with that large wish list, then there's going to be a few of those nuggets that are going to work, because I'm going to guarantee you that on that wish list, somebody else has got that same thing on that wish list too. And then you can work together to try and create that. But I really feel like it's important to engage with your coworkers, with your other managers, and not try and do things, in as a silo, but work together to achieve, because you're stronger together and you can create much more economies of scale and such. And so that's why, when I look at, budgeting is it's across the board. It's for everybody, everyone. It's not just one little area. It's all working together, because you're creating something that is going to become a success for everyone. Does that help?
Yeah, thanks so much, Wendy. That was great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Wendy. That was really great how you articulated that. It's about communication is so vital, that connection, that networking, also speaking to your audience. If you're talking to the finance department, I really appreciate what you said, speak their language, speak what like they would understand, what they would buy into. So sometimes that is adjusting that hat and putting on a different kind of hat. What I thought about also when we were going through this presentation is we don't plan to fail. No one plans to fail here, but we fail to plan, right? So that's where the strategic planning is so vital. And then those SMART goals, that's just a great performance measure. So thank you for that. Such a thorough, I took a lot of notes, everyone. I hope you did too. I feel like I have some things I need to work on, in my business and what I'm doing. And so I hope that you do too. And that only when we put in that effort, when we put in that effort, it is work, but it is worth the work. You know, it's worth having stronger communities and stronger organizations. So put in that work. Those SMART goals are amazing.
Yeah, and organizations such as, you know, Cando and AFOA, and there's other ones, right? They're great resources to bring people together to be able to talk about best practices. And, you know, so search out those local community organizations to talk to, because they're great ways to get fabulous ideas.
Great. Okay, so we just have like 1 minute left. So Cindy has her hand up.
Hi, Cindy.
I ended up missing most of the workshop. I really wanted to get some insight in this for the community, but also for my own budgeting. I've been, you know, my motto has been, you have money, spend it. And I've been doing that for so long that I've neglected to save money up or anything. And it's hard to do the smart thing. And, you know, I have so many ideas, and I've had so many ideas over the years, and just don't seem to be able to get my feet moving forward when you know it's a good idea and stuff. And in fact, you know, in the world, some of them ideas that I have had have come to fruition through other people's ideas as the same as mine. So I'd like to watch the recording and get more of a feel of how to go about things and stuff. But it's almost like I'm stuck in this cement type of thing, and my feet don't want to move forward. So my ideas get lost and someone else picks it up and things like that. So
You
I
know,
hope.
maybe Cindy, you know, I mean, maybe instead of thinking, maybe try and think about what is your desired outcome, right? What would you like to see? What would your world look like, right? Or what would it look like if you could do what you wanted to do? And maybe start from there and move back and then work backwards. Maybe that might be a way to get your feet out of the cement, is
I've
envision
actually
that
already been there.
beautiful, try it, you know, that beautiful piece and then maybe that will give you the inspiration to try and move out of that where you're currently sitting.
No, it doesn't. I
No?
actually have done that quite a few times, and with my cemented feet, I guess it's almost like fear, or I guess maybe fear of failing or stuff like that. I don't really know what it is. It could
Yeah.
be all in my head from way back when I was younger or something, but I think maybe the fear of failure, and you know, I can see that the light at the end of the tunnel where all the pot of gold is, more or less, if you want to look at it that way. And I see it there, and I'm grabbing for it, but I'm not moving towards it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, maybe baby steps, little steps, right? Just little successes. You know, it doesn't have to be, it just is a slow process. I mean, you can't, just little successes and celebrate them. Remember, you know, what you might not think of as a success, maybe you just need to look at little ideas of success, right? It doesn't have to be everything at once, maybe little things, because you know it's those little steps that take you to that slowly get you there, right? Slow and steady, like the turtle, right?
Yeah, yeah. You know, I know that I've been successful in teamwork with the community because we have great big successes. In fact, we just did a signing ceremony over some land recently or a few days ago. So
Nice.
those I'm able to do. It's my own personal stuff I'm not able to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear you.
And I think that you're not alone, Cindy. You made a
Yes,
really good description of your feet
absolutely.
being stuck in the cement. And I think
Yeah,
there's not one of us who haven't felt that in our lives. So thank you for sharing that.
absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
There was a really good financial webinar we did. Was it last week or a couple weeks ago that you might want to refer to as well? She was very practical and just very simple stuff. So if we're talking about that finances piece,
Yeah.
that might be a good webinar to check out. I cannot
Okay.
remember the name of it. And then go back and watch this one on the replay as well,
Yes.
because you did come in a little bit late.
Yeah.
But we've all been in your cemented shoe, and there's a way
Yes.
forward. So you've got to trust in that. And again, it's
Yes.
baby steps. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you, everyone.
Thank you, Cindy.
Time is
Thank you.
up. Really appreciate, I really appreciate, Cindy, your honesty and your vulnerability. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for the questions and the comments. Continue to dream big. Don't let your head get in the way of those, visions and dreams that you have in your heart. But at the same time, bring back that practicality and that reality, that make it realistic. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Wendy. It was so great to see you again.
Yes.
I hope you have a good rest of the day, everybody. May you
Yes.
walk in a good way with your own heart, your own spirit, and with those all around. And above all, honor Creator in all that you do. Hi.
Thank you.